Hello, today is Wednesday, April 28th. This is Andy Aiken, and I'm guest hosting or guest co-hosting in Yelena Senna's place. She's on vacation, and I'll also be facilitating these meetings the next couple of days. So it's been some pretty interesting market action over the last several days. We've seen a lot of movement, but not a lot of forward movement in the S&P 500. So I'm going to switch over to share my screen here. Just a moment. And okay. So let's see. Bring up the. I'm going to start with S&P 500 here. Some commodity stocks that I found interesting, but so S&P 500, and looking at a daily chart, it's the last all of this week, it's had very little movement. Today it was down about 3.5 points, but and not really a very big range as well. So, what are your thoughts about where the S&P 500 is right now? And
well, it's gone 3 days with a range of less than 2 from close to close,
right.
And today it was as of 4:15, which I use as the close. It was
Right. So the futures are moving a little bit positive. We're actually up 5 3/4 today. So.
Well, yesterday they closed at 79, and today at 83. They're up 4, but it's not a day where the infrastructure has made a lot of money at the expense of the bottom feeders. Volume was only 1.1 million in the futures, and
we've seen some stocks that have had some pretty big moves, like for example, GE was one that it was obviously on the verge of bankruptcy, and it seems to have come back from the dead a little bit, back up to a little bit over 13, and maybe a little bit of a pullback from its high of 14. But all that's happened in the last few days. Went down as low as, I want to say, looks like 13 and a half roughly. 12. Well, it went below 13 yesterday, and now it's back up a little bit. But it seems to be sort of reducing in volatility over time, maybe flattening off to sort of waiting to see what happens.
I guess everybody's waiting for the talk of President Biden tonight at 8:45. But I believe the FANGs have captured it already, and what he's going to announce is already been printed. So we have occasion where we have some news that not different from the past, and we have an exact time. We're awfully close to 4,200. The S&P would be very unusual for it not to hit that goal.
Sort of infrastructure seems to be the one thing that his administration thinks they can get some support from Republicans on, right, in the Senate and so on. They've been successful at holding the filibuster, but they might not filibuster infrastructure bill, for example.
Well, it's definitely a progressive day. Cuomo has denied any wrongdoing. If anyone else had had as many accusations as he did, he'd be pilloried in the Hooskow. But and there was a Giuliani had his office invaded by and the feds took several computers, and so it was very much a woke day, and that's always very bullish. And now we're close to 4,200. We've been futzing around for four or 5 days.
Right.
So
let me maybe another one that's of interest is that a lot of commodities stocks or commodities have really been moving over the last few weeks. And let me see if I can get this chart up just a moment. What we've seen though is that over the last few days, a little bit of a pullback, but in some of the agricultural commodities like corn, for example, let's go there. It takes a little time.
Where's the pullback? It seems to be pretty high.
Yeah, so down about 2% today, but more than that from its high. When its high is got 723, and today pulled back to under 700, 681. So then let's look at soybeans. So something similar there. It actually, the pullback started yesterday, and then continuation of that pullback today. But these had these huge runs. It looks like 10 days where they were straight up every day. But then something like gold is just they had their big sort of pullback a month or two ago, and it's kind of struggling to recover there, right? Still,
I guess that's why bonds were up today. It's we had a green day, bonds up and stocks up, and
right. So let me get that one. So one of the sort of let's get the futures for bonds here. 10-year.
Well, while I was in North Carolina, I had the pleasure of meeting with a great man, a great physicist, Professor Adrian Bijan, and he came up with a new theory. He's been talking about the constructal levels, and how in every field the movement of the river is to higher and higher, and prices, and he modified that. He now says the market moves in cataracts, has a waterfall, and then it bobbles around. It's a little slow, then it goes up again. So
yeah, so it looked like the S&P futures, for example, if we that actually did. It sort of tapped a constructal level here over the last. Let's see, I'm looking at a hourly chart right now rather than trying to. My computer's a little slow here.
Well, you're looking at a 1-day chart. I mean, it's been.
I was looking at daily, but I'm getting
It's gone up from 3,600 continuously without
right.
dropping below 100. Never,
Right.
Never done that before. Gone up five round numbers through the 4,000 level with impunity, and
right. But that 4,200 level seemed to be kind of a constructal level where it tapped it and then has pulled back a few times, and so there might have been something.
When did it tap it?
It tapped it today again. So this is an hourly chart. So it did.
Are you looking at the futures or the index?
I'm looking at the futures right now. So rather than the index, it actually went to. So let's see, 41.93. So it didn't quite make it.
No.
But then let's see, a few days ago, on the 20th. Mm-hmm. So it went. So yesterday it went to 41.92. So it right around that, just under that level of 4,200.
It's tantalizing, but much more tantalizing for the bears. And by the way, in the world of non-fangs, a very prominent value investor, DeVal, found that as we've been saying, growth has beaten value for each of the last 10 years, and anyone who's been indexing would have been doing much better in NASDAQ, but he stuck to value and managed to lose 90% of his funds. Went from 15 billion to 500 million. It sounds pretty good, still 500 million. Then he jumped out the window. So that's sad to see that a man believes so strongly in value. Buffett used to believe in value, and he learned it supposedly from Benjamin Graham, when Benjamin Graham wasn't philandering in California, but he's famous. His value was looking for the size of cigarettes underground and buying regional department stores. And Charlie Munger set him the right way. And for a long time, Buffett played the mantra that he didn't understand anything of new technology. He didn't know how a typewriter worked.
Right.
But then the boys who bought his dinner for $1 million came to work for him, and they convinced him to get into Apple.
Oh, okay.
And that's been very helpful in shielding him from a fate similar to DeVal.
Well, I saw
Go on. What were you going to say?
I saw an interview with Bill Miller, who he ran Lake Mason Value Fund for many years, and then he had I think a bad year or two, and he was asked to leave and left. But he was a very early investor in Bitcoin, and in something like 2010, he bought quite a lot of it in his personal account. And in the interview, he more or less confessed that he was, at least from holding that Bitcoin, he'd become a billionaire. He had enough to be a billionaire, which I guess doesn't take that much now, about 20,000 Bitcoin, maybe a little bit more or a little bit less. But at the time, there was a time, but at the time that he was buying it, it was probably about $20 or so a Bitcoin. So it wasn't, it was $500,000 that he's turned into a billion.
So very frequently you see a fund where the fund that's open only to the individuals, like Renaissance made 70% last year, but the investors in their major fund, which was 20 times as great, actually lost about 50%. And it's unfortunate that so often the fund manager does so much better than the fund. It's part of the syndrome of the top, the feeders at the top making money at the expense of the poor public. And I think that my guess is that the poor public is going to have a recrimination at the 4,200 level, and I'm not bullish above 4,200. So that's only 0.2% away.
Right. So let's go back to that chart. It's third. Yeah, it's really it had this incredible run, like a lot of other assets, and it really moved up from that roughly 3850 level, where it bounced around for a while between roughly, let's say, 3,700, 3,900, and then shot up to just under 4,200, and now it's kind of pausing.
What the amazing thing is that it did it from below 3,700, went straight up to 38 to 39 to 40 to 41 without dropping below 100. Right. That's a very unusual thing, where based on the regularities, it wouldn't be.
Are there is typically when we see these Constructal levels, do you find that an attractive, let's say, near-term short, or do you think
no?
Okay.
When it drops below a Constructal level, then I see a near-term buy. But it's very unusual to go straight up.
So it's
that's a tribute to the progressive nature of the ability of all the big companies to capture the essence of the progressive forces in the market. Move from Atlanta is very good for them, and the lionization of Black Lives Matter, and they're really leading from the bottom.
So the so what you're this 4,200 level, if we see it sort of continue to be reinforced for a few days.
Since it's never happened before, the statistics on it will be meaningless. You have one observation that has never happened before. You know, usually it goes up and down. It zigzags a little bit, but it hasn't given the shorts any respite.
Mhm.
What do you think about the announcement today of President Biden's news conference?
In which one? Sorry.
What do you feel about President Biden's news conference?
Oh, I see. Well, yeah, it's well, I watched a lot of it, and it was
It's happening at 8:45.
right. Oh, yeah, yeah. It's and I guess he's going to be giving his address to Congress tonight, right?
Yeah,
And so,
nice tax increase, and
right.
somehow all the big corporations have found that the higher the taxes on them, the better it is.
Right, or the higher the taxes that the big corporations can withstand the high taxes, the smaller corporations can't, and so they are able to push their competition out by raising the drawbridge a little bit, right? Sort of the corporatist.
What's happening in the biotech field?
Biotechs, there've been some really sort of high. I would call them, big crashes in some of the biotechs, and so let me show some that I actually had a little bit of one that that tanked. I didn't have a very large position, but I added a little bit more when it pulled back, and that was one that I watch. Let's see if I can get it up. Is Frequency Therapeutics, and none of these would I ever put a large position on, just because they're so risky. But but when like this, it's completely broken chart, and right now it's at sort of the place where it broke, and this is one where they submitted some bad clinical trials. But I do think that what it tends to be that you have this kind of one day collapse, but often buying in this area where post collapse can be a reasonable speculation. You have a slightly better than 50% chance of it moving back up, and I think in the case of, if you know a little bit about the companies, then it's and what their research looks like, what their data looks like, then you can increase those odds a little bit. But so that's one that I lost a little bit of. I bought it a little bit lower, so I'm still profitable on it, but it more or less wiped out most of my profit. But the ones that are, I think, like Biotech, it's a little better to, I think, have a like a biotech index or ETF. I think those are a little better to trade for most people, unless they want to watch really closely. And because they're cap weighted, they tend to favor companies that are a little bit more, or you diversify the risk across a lot of companies. This one tends to be. Oh, go ahead.
To me, the most bullish thing right now, aside from the proximity to the Constructal 4200, is going through the southeast. One is reminded of the invasion of the body snatchers. The people are there, but they're a little listless, and there's a lot of plywood around, and everybody is wearing a face mask. I mean, people
right,
and of course, there have been numerous studies that show that the face masks don't do any good. That an Irish study shows that 1 out of 10,000 cases is caused by an outdoor transmission, and
right.
another study shows that been one case around the world of outdoor transmission. It's much more transmissible indoors. And then good editorial in the Wall Street Journal today on that point. And but it reminds me of the turn of the century. Everybody is somehow going to be freed from the anonymity that comes when you can't see someone's face.
Yeah.
I'm one of those people who likes to see faces, and I find it very depressing to see these zombies walking around and following the advice of the regulatory agencies, the CDC and the FDA, to
Well, the
mask
president
up.
himself saying, Joe Biden himself saying that if and only if you get vaccinated can you enjoy outdoor activities and not wear a mask.
They always want to. They always want to create a crisis and create a reason that the individual should
right.
lose their choice. But anyway, I find that very bullish that now they're talking about New York is big headline in the Post. People are wearing sexy outfits again, and they're walking around without masks. It should free up a lot of energy. Certainly 20 points.
Right. I got an email today. It was like from one of these, local deals kind of email lists, Pulsed, something like that. And I found it interesting the way that it was worded, because this is not at all a political. It's just, this restaurant wants to offer you $10 off to eat at their restaurant, that type of thing. And it was take New York back, take New York City back. And well, from what? It's not from the virus. It's from these people that want the lockdowns and so on. Like they're saying, get out and enjoy the restaurants, enjoy the city, and take the city back. But yeah, I've seen, it seems like people are just over the last few weeks, especially as the weather's warmed up a little bit, that people are really eager to get out and not as they're sort of post fear. They're beyond the fear, and they're not really interested, and maybe they've gotten vaccinated or whatever, and so they feel like they're safe enough.
It should be bearish for bonds and good for 20 points and stuff. Let's call it a day, Andy. Thank you very much.
Oh wait, if you don't mind, there is one chart that I wanted to bring up, Vic, and that is one to look at, I think, in biotech, and it's one where they've not launched their vaccine yet. And it's a different kind of vaccine, and it's the one that is a more traditional vaccine for COVID, and that's Novavax, and they're a company that's been around for a long time in the vaccine space, and so they have a very good reputation, but they have a COVID vaccine that hasn't launched yet, and so they've run up quite a bit. It's not maybe the value that it was a year ago, but there is some speculation on that if they have a successful launch, then actually they could get a very big chunk of this vaccine share.
Let us not forget the importance of Mr. Soji, because Bitcoin in 1 or 2 days went from 65,000 to below 50,000.
Right.
And just the way the market tends to. You know, 50 is a number that's as significant as a round number of 100, and it bounced right back. So I think this is very strong for Bitcoin, and it will
Yeah.
tend to provide a foundation for all the others.
Yeah, the one other that I would point out that we just had also Ethereum, even though Bitcoin, it made a new high back on April 14th, and then it pulled back really strongly. The number two crypto, which is Ethereum, it made a new high today, and it's now sitting at a new high, right? I think right at this moment. So this new all-time high. So it's some of these smaller cryptocurrencies they're rallying really strongly, and Bitcoin it's hanging in there. It's bounced, as you say, it bounced, went down below the 50,000 level after having gotten up to about right at 65,000, which you could say is a Constructal. Definitely, it actually went to 64,899 at Coinbase. So it just a hair under 65,000, and then pulled way back, 27% pullback from its high on April 14th, and now it's bounced and it's sitting right in the middle. I actually think it's sort of making room for some of these other cryptocurrencies like Ethereum that are rallying really strongly right now, and then this one, like Ethereum, some of the others will slow down, and Bitcoin will take off again after this part of the cycle is completed.
Well, thank you very much, Andy. You've added a lot to my knowledge, and I appreciate your augmenting it with a lot of things that I know nothing about. Thank you very much. I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, thank you. See you tomorrow.